welcome back to the Selena Global Living Podcast, where we talk about real stories, real estate, and the realities of life abroad. Today, we're traveling to green Spain, the northern part of Spain, Cantabria specifically. This is a lush, green, beautiful part of Spain on the northern coast of the country, and it attracts people who love the outdoors and the temperate climate of the area. My guest today is Grace. Is a rental specialist and a property finder, and she helps people from all over the world settle in this part of Spain. We're going to talk about what life is like here, what you can expect if you're looking to rent or buy, and we segue into a conversation about what it's like to raise children in a third culture and some of the sort of unexpected benefits and challenges that come with raising children in a foreign country. So without further ado, let's dig into our conversation with Grace. Grace, thank you so much for joining me today. I don't know much about Cantabria, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about the area from you and sharing all of this with my listeners. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I hope by the end of it, you'll know an awful lot about Cantabria in the north of Spain.
Well, based just on our little previous conversation, I cannot wait to come and visit. And of course, I've seen the gorgeous pictures. But tell me, what drew you to the area?
My husband is from here. So if I'll be honest, that was a big contributing factor. Neither of us, we lived in Australia for 12 years and neither of us needed to move back to our homeland. I'm Irish originally, but we have been investing in property here for over 10 years. And so when we decided to move to Europe, it was a easy and maybe logical step for us that we moved here. The reason that really drew us, I guess, is the lifestyle that it affords us here. So we had the opportunity that we could live anywhere in Europe. We had a house here that we could move into. It was by the beach, emulated our life in Australia, the beachside living. And what's kept us here, I guess, because those things brought us here. But what has kept us here is the slower lifestyle, the connection to the rural living. Even if you're in the city, it's 10 minutes to rural spaces. So we do a lot of hiking, a lot of kayaking, beaches the whole time, all year round. And we love, just a slower pace of life, which can be quite difficult for some people, I think, as forms of when you're adapting to life in Cantabria or into Spain in general.
Yeah, so let's talk about slower pace of life. When I think of that, I think of my time in the south of Portugal, where it was really hard to get things done. So my lens that when I hear slow pace of life, I hear difficult to get the plumber to arrive or difficult to push things forward with government offices. Is that what you mean, or do you mean it in
It's
a different
both.
way?
I mean,
Okay.
I think across Spain and it's certainly the north is no exception. The no pasa nada. There's a kind of like, oh well, it'll get done, and it can be hard to get things done. I think that's obviously a reason for using someone like us, is to be able to navigate that, and it can be a real point of frustration for people coming from, especially from fast-paced countries like the US or Canada or other European countries where, let's say, it's a little bit more efficient and things are definitely slower here. So part of our service is managing people's expectations, and then, knowing maybe some shortcuts or someone to call to try and speed things up a little bit. But yeah, I think that is a huge adaptation. And it's something that when we're doing a pre-moving consultation with someone, you really have to manage that with them as to how long things can take and the processes that are involved in it. Like we had a client buying a car the other week and couldn't understand the amount of paperwork that was required to buy a car, and that you couldn't just go in and pick one and drive off, as you can do, say, in the States, or you can in the movies anyhow. I'm not sure if it's practically the same.
Yeah, that's a good point. What would you say is the flip side of that? So it's a slower pace of life. Some things are more frustrating, but what else does that kind of allow for in your day-to-day life?
Connection. You spend more time together as a family. Your priorities are different. Your priorities to your children, to your partner, to your hobbies. Everyone here, most people move to Cantabria for the lifestyle, and the lifestyle being water sports. So surfing, sailing, the Olympic team are here, amazing surfing all year round, nature walks, hiking, kayaking, I mentioned, there's just skiing in the winter. So typically people who move here are those type of people who enjoy those type of things. And so there's an allowance to a permission, I think, that's given to actually enjoy those things and to integrate things during the week as well, that it's not just, Monday to Friday is a hard slog and then Saturday and Sunday are the days off. It's more kind of, yeah, integrated into everyday life, or we try anyhow.
Right. And we still have to make a living as well, right?
Yeah, unless you come on a non-lucrative visa and then it's good times for everyone.
Exactly. It sounds beautiful. Let's talk about life in Santander. How would you characterize the city?
Santander it's historically a port city. So in the times of the Spanish Armada, whatever age bracket that was, the ships were built in Santander. The timber from the ships came from the oak forests of Cantabria. The cannons were made in La Cavada, which is outside of Santander. And so there's a real rich history in Santander for that reason. It's still a working port. However, very little, you'll see the huge big liners go out, but there's very little port activity. So it's cleaned up an awful lot. Some of the harbour has been, is it repatriated, the term, where the city has taken it over. In the
Right.
last tourism in Santander, this has been traditionally outside of Santander. Cantabria is a very agricultural rich state. So a lot of dairy, a lot of fishing, wonderful anchovies from Cantabria. Santander then has tourism, fishing, have and always been, and are good industry revenue generators for the city. But in the last number of years, there's been a lot of investment in arts and culture. And so we are home to the Santander Bank. The Botín family own that, which is now an international bank, but it was started in Santander, and it's in the deeds that the primary residence has to remain in Santander. So they, from a philanthropical perspective, have donated a lot to the city, including the Renzo Piano designed Centro Botín, which is a contemporary art gallery. And so there's lots of buildings being renovated to house modern and contemporary art. There's lots of music happening, lots of fiestas and festivals. There's a really growing remote working community as well. So there's lots of interest and fantastic restaurants. I mean, I don't know how many Michelin star restaurants we have, but there's quite a lot. And because it's a harbour city, there's beautiful, harbour walks. And then we've got city beaches as well. So even without a car, you can really enjoy quite a lot living in Santander. And it's so safe, I think that's what people can't believe with many of the Spanish cities, is just how safe it is. Yeah, easy to
Yeah,
get around.
I remarked on that on my last scouting trip that I did. I was in so many cities late at night, walking home alone, and I would just never do that in the United States. I would never feel safe doing that, and it feels so different here. And of course, things happen everywhere, but in general, so many people are out. All types of people are out at all hours of the night
All
in
hours, yeah,
Spain,
all generations.
and all generations, and there's just a different feeling of calmness and security in the streets and the kind of places that you would end up. It's a really beautiful feeling. And kids running around playing soccer in the street and running to it feels like, I don't know, the States maybe 40 or 50 years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
No,
nice feeling.
it is, and
You
community is
mentioned
so important, connection and community are so important to people, and I think that's wonderful that it's something that some nations have lost and forgotten, and, yeah, it's really wonderful.
Yeah. You mentioned being able to navigate without a car. So how realistic is it to live in the city and not own a car?
I think many people do it. I don't do it. We have cars and we live 15 minutes outside of the city. The public transport, so if you live within the city, it's very easy. And then if you want to do day trips out, because, I mentioned the hiking, right? You're going to get out there and
Uh-huh.
explore the wider Cantabria. There is good train networks and to different parts of the Comunidad, so the Cantabria, and then bus networks as well. So it could definitely be improved, but it is there and it depends on your time frame. The other thing that I love and I always recommend to people, that if you don't want to own a car, but you do drive and can drive, are those car short-term hire facilities such as Guppy, to be able to I used to love using them in Australia when we didn't need a full-time car. To be able to hire them to go pick up something or to go off for the day was really lovely. But for public transport, it does exist. And it depends on where you're going, really. But if you're within the city, everywhere is a walking distance. There's lots of bike hires as well through the town hall that you can hire. So getting around is possible. It just depends on. We have people who live in the city and attend a school that's 20 minutes out. So you need to allocate, 40 minutes for doing a round trip then by public transport. So it depends on how much free time you have, because it's always going to be faster to get into a car and go somewhere. But the option does exist.
Okay.
And then, of course, apart from Santander, we've got the international airport, we've got train links connected to Madrid, and we've got the ferry to the UK and Ireland. So there are lots of things you can do without a car for sure.
Right. It sounds like it. What about the school system? How is it regarded? And when international families come in, do they tend to put kids into public school or are there private school options?
It's really interesting because there's no per se international schools in Cantabria. And so we have public, concertado, semi-private, and then there's one private school, which is the Waldorf Steiner School. And so the majority of families that I notice that are coming in the last year are going to public schools. And I guess there's a couple of reasons for that. They're free. The standard of education is excellent and people really want their children to integrate into communities. So I think to back up from that is that there isn't a whole lot of English spoken in Cantabria. So if you move here, learning the language is a crucial part. There is an expat community. It doesn't kind of concentrate in different areas. So it's more that people are sprinkled around. And a lot of people have moved here and there are a lot of people moving here. So there is an expat community. But for schools, public schools, the majority of people, and I find it interesting, really want their kids to go to public schools to learn Spanish as quickly as possible so that they can integrate in. And so as a result of that, there are in the public schools, and I mean, we have a service where we help people find the right school for their children based on a brief, similar to, finding the right home, take a brief and then advise on the schools. But I think that as a result of that, I guess, determination or desire from those who are moving here, there are more and more international families in schools. And then, as I said, there's no real bilingual schools. Some of the schools say that they are, but if your language if your first language is English, they're not true bilingual schools. They may teach English better than some other schools, but they're not really true. They're not what we would expect as a bilingual school.
Got it. Okay. And how, in your experience, how are they at helping to integrate English students into school? So children in middle school or coming into high school who don't have proficient Spanish, what kind of challenges do they face and what kind of services are available to them? Are you aware?
I don't think that it's happened too much when it comes to middle school or high school. Because those children, the majority of families who move here would have a level of Spanish if they were going to that. So what we find is that people moving from other parts of Spain, so they're an international family who lived in another part. The children have learned Spanish in their other part, and then they've made the decision as a family that they want to move to the north of Spain. With primary schools with children who are coming, it depends on the school, quite frankly. There's some schools who appreciate it and really make an effort, and there's other schools that they don't, and so it depends, and it depends on the child as well as to how much they'll need. Some kids don't, just want to go in and roll their sleeves up and figure it out. And so how we help is get to know the child and be able to advise on which school will be better and not, really speak to the school to help them understand the impact that this has on a child's confidence, child's ability to learn, and the impact that it has on the wider family as well. And then support the family with whatever extracurricular Spanish classes they might need as well. Children are incredible, aren't they? Like you see kids within a couple of months and they're, and children have their fortune, I guess, which us adults don't have, is that they have the common language of play. So depending on what age they are, if they're under 8, under 9, it's so easy for them to integrate into life. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to watch, and
it
it's
really
really fun. I
is.
remember when my son was little, we were down in I think it was Marbella, and it's such an international area. These little kids on the playground, one speaks Russian, one speaks Portuguese, one speaks this, and they just would figure out, and then one would translate for the other because many of them spoke multiple languages, and they all just figured it out. It was really easy. It was
And they
adorable to
go
watch.
then, as they have more languages, they go between the different languages. I don't know about your son, but my kids will speak a little bit of English, a little bit of Spanish with whomever they have, and there's some of their friends have 4 languages. It's incredible. I do think that it's really nice to have. I was talking to a mum about this yesterday, she's Swedish Chilean and her husband is British. And they've moved here, and we were talking about the importance to be able to honor his Swedishness. For me,
Mhm.
my first son is Australian, and he is definitely Australian. He's not Spanish. He's not Irish. He's Australian. And I was expressing, the ways that I honor that. And I think it's really important that no matter where anyone comes from, whether they have children or not, that you make the effort to integrate into what's here and to learn, the deep history, the culture that exists here, but never forget where you're from either. Though, to have, yeah, the best of both worlds is a real gift to be able to teach our children. I grew up in the same house until I was 18. My parents are, there was no exposure to different cultures really when I was growing up. And so it's a great gift that we can give our children, that they can live in different parts of the world. And yes, like they are human like us, and adaptation can be difficult for some of us, and for others it isn't. My husband loves change and loves adaptate and adapts really well. I love change and I don't adapt very well, and I can recognize that myself now at 45.
Right. I was thinking about this the other day with my son. So he is a third culture kid, true by definition. He is American. My husband is Italian. We speak both languages at home. We live in a third country where he has to speak 2 more languages, Spanish and Catalan.
Exactly, Catalan.
And yeah, and so but he is in a place that's pretty international. Lots of kids have parents from different places, and it's really easy. And I was asking him what it was like to be a third culture kid,
Mhm.
and he was like, this is my life. It doesn't, I'm good. I'm happy. It's not a problem. But from the parent perspective, it's kind of interesting. We have to learn how to, like you said, understand the culture and adapt because, for example, his favorite magical creature at Christmas is Gagadillo.
Mm.
Gagadillo is the Catalan Christmas log, and he is all about the Christmas log. But we had to learn about all of these different traditions. We had to decide, does a mouse a
A tooth fairy, right?
or tooth fairy,
Yeah,
right?
like who wants a
Yeah.
mouse coming in? I refuse with that. So we have ratoncito Perez in our house, right? Because we live in
Okay.
Spain. But I'm terrified of mice. And so I can't not be terrified of mice just for this magical creature to come.
Right.
So I insist that it comes outside of the bedroom, or
Oh,
downstairs.
what a great way to make sure. That's brilliant. Yeah, I think that would be my one piece of advice for parents is to pick your magical creatures carefully
Yes.
as you navigate this because you end up with a lot of them. I mean, I brought in Elf on the Shelf, which I didn't need to do
No!
and shouldn't have done. And then we've got Gagatio, and you've got to feed it. Remember to take away the food all Christmas. You got to move the elf, and then there's Santa Claus, and then you've got the three kings, and then you've got mice and fairies, and oh my goodness,
But there's
it's a
little
whole
Halloween,
menagerie.
right? So that makes it a little bit easier. And I think that was something,
Yeah.
because Halloween is a Celtic festival. And so growing up in Ireland, Halloween was really important because it's Samhain. And so when we moved here, there was no Halloween 5 years ago. Now there is, but also we then figured out, well, I went back to my childhood and what were the cultures and customs around, Samhain and Halloween that we loved growing up. And it's the games, I don't know if you ever did them, but the bobbing for apple and then the
Mhm.
understanding what the end, what the Celtic festival means. And so we have the same here. We have Samhain here in the north of Spain as well. And so it's funny how that you can find similar things. I don't know how to explain it well, but it's not that that you throw everything out when you move to a place, but you figure out how can you integrate it in an authentic way. So it's not that you're that I'm being an Irish in Spain, but I'm doing, yeah, something unique and authentic to us, but in a local way.
Yep, I hear you exactly. Thanksgiving is a great example of
Yes,
that. So
exactly.
adapting Thanksgiving is such a wonderful opportunity to bring lots of people together. And I love making the pies. That's my favorite part. way too much dessert. And you can't really get a big turkey. You do chicken instead. You can't get frozen cranberries, so you do dried cranberries. Da, 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 and you sort of make it, and you're not going to do it on a Thursday afternoon because no one's available. So
Available.
it becomes a Sunday lunch, but you still get to have that the spirit of that holiday and kind of pass that down. But then you end up blending and making your own family traditions that are
Yes.
just totally unique
Yeah.
to your family in this
Yeah.
place, and that's really special too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's it's a fun journey to be on. I think it's a gift to our children to
Total
give
gift.
them the languages and the experience, and for the most part, they're pretty adaptable, and like this is all they know. This is their world, and they're as long as they're loved and safe and all of that, they'll be fine. I mean, I think sometimes, especially Americans, where we have, well, I'm sure this is like this in all cultures, we have such specific benchmarks in our childhood, right? There's prom and homecoming
Rites of
and
passages, kind of, right?
rites of passages that don't exist here, and you
Mhm.
give up all of that, getting to be the parent of the child going to prom, for example. Um, and that's one of the trade-offs, I guess, but there are all these wonderful benefits that come with letting go of some of those traditions and then creating new ones.
Yeah, and I think, we're so fortunate that we're making the decision to move to these places. And so, you get to author how your life works, really.
Yeah, you get to determine, you're not
Mm.
defaulting into it. And I think that's when you think about building community in these places, that's a really big part of it. When you come to a new place, you've consciously made the decision that this place, you're drawn to this place, and then you meet other people who were also drawn to this place. You already have this commonality and you're all fish out of water. So, yes, we want to integrate into the local community, but you also end up making really tight friends with other people from all over the world who found themselves in the same place for
Yeah.
probably similar reasons
And I
as
think,
you.
myself and my now business partner, Rena, we started an English speaking mums group 3 or 4 years ago for that reason. We miss just having a chat in English and also having a network of people. I used to buy this in, Marks and Spencer's, for example. Where do I get it now? And, or where do I get, when we, say, for example, for those types of cakes that, say for your Thanksgiving pies or whatever, and it might be so spicy you only use once a year. And so it's not stocked in any of the main supermarkets. Where can I get those? Those
Yeah.
being able to support each other in that, and I and that's really lovely. And I think it also amazes me as well as to, so I've been here a long time and I have a good mix of Spanish friends and non-Spanish friends, and I naively thought when I started the English speaking mums group that I would see myself in everyone that was in the group, and there's almost 100 women in it now, all mums, and I get surprised every so often. I go, oh no, she's not my cup of tea at all. Just because we speak English and we live in the same area, I kind of naively thought that I'd really like everyone. And then I go, and you have to go, okay, well that's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea either.
Yeah. But you can find yourself in the group, but yeah, you're not gonna be friends with
You need
everyone
to
for
be best
sure.
friends with everyone, and you kind of have, like anywhere. But I think when you do move, you have the opportunity to start from scratch with friendships. Of course, you keep all your friends from home, and those, childhood friends will always be with you. But you get to start from scratch as to who am I and what do I want from a friendship and what can I give to a friendship? Because when you move to a new country, there's quite a few things to do, and you're finding your feet, and so you don't have maybe as much free time or headspace or just emotional, I don't know, to give to new friendships as well. So, yeah, but you'll always be able to find someone who can go for surf or a kayak or a beach walk or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's so nice. I wanna switch gears a little bit, well, a big left turn actually, and talk about housing, which
Yeah,
is what you do. You help
that's what
people
I
find
do.
their place, which is wonderful, and you help with both rentals and with buying and people who are investing, but let's start with rentals.
Mhm.
How hard is it to find a long-term rental? Are most rentals short-term in your area, or can you find long-term?
There's been a huge move in the last 2 years to do what's called temporal. And so that's where people rent. Cantabria has always been a zone for second residences for Spanish people. So people outside of Cantabria from Valladolid south, so from 2 hours south, have always had residencies through the centuries in Cantabria and around Santander because of the hot temperatures in other parts of the country. We're a mild temperate temperature all year round. We get summer, we get up to um kind of 24 to 28 is our sweet spot. We get a couple of days which are around 40, and then winter time we get around 6 to 12 degrees. At the moment, it's autumn, so we have maybe 10 degrees in the morning and then 22 degrees in the afternoon. So layering's really important here. And so because of that, people are now, and so people had second residencies that they would use during the summer, maybe come for Easter, maybe come for Christmas, but the rest of the year they were just empty. And so there's been a real wave with, Airbnb took popularity here maybe about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, definitely 3 years ago. And people started putting their second residencies in temporal contracts. So from September until June, they would do a 9-month contract and then they go hell for leather and renting out for as high as possible during the summer months. And so that's what makes the rental market difficult in Santander. So there are definitely 1-year contracts. And, renting in Spain typically goes for a 12-month contract, which is then can be auto renewed. And so 1-year contracts are definitely available. The 9-month contract is very much available, but of course it doesn't suit the majority of people. You don't want to have to move out. What are you going to do for the summer months? Go somewhere else? I think it's immoral, quite personally. And then there's lots of short-term options as well. So if you wanted to, when we work with someone, we take a brief and understand. And if they have the luxury, it's really lovely to spend 3 months in one part and 3 months in another part. That's if they're looking at more of Cantabria as a wide. Obviously, if they want to be in Santander in an urban setting, we don't advise that. But there are 1-year contracts for sure. Rental across the board, the supply is low. And so working with someone with us just gives you a better chance of getting exactly closer to what you want as a brief.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's like this in your area, like it is where I am, where sometimes the good stuff just never hits the market at all.
That's what I say to people.
There's a
They don't
waiting
understand
list.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think real estates are the same all over the world. If they can get rid of a property, if they can let a property or sell a property before they go to the effort of putting it on the website, much easier. Much easier. And so
Yep.
yeah, we find that for both renting and buying that the majority of the properties that we find for our clients just aren't online and they're like, oh, I never saw that one, or that, there's other tricks that we can do as well to find the right property.
Yep, definitely. So let's talk about buying property in that area. What are the options? What could people expect if they're looking for, let's say, a 2 or 3 bedroom, 2 bath, either apartment or small house?
Well, within Santander, it would be more apartment. Houses would be on the outskirts, which is still in the urban. And it really depends as much as, if you wanted to, you could find a urban 2-bed apartment for maybe 250, 300. That's 250,000 euro. And then, but going up, we could find you a nice 4-bedroom house on the outskirts of Santander for 800,000, or even a 4-bedroom apartment, just in the beach area of Santander for 850. So it really, there's such a variety or range within the spectrum that depending on what your brief is, the price range changes an awful lot. And I'm sorry that I can't be more specific with it, but it's with those two examples of the 2-bed for 250,000, or then a 4-bedroom apartment for 850,000. And they're very different audiences who would go for those. But if you're a retired couple, for example, and you're coming to Santander, I think if you have a budget of 250, 350,000 and a 2-bed apartment is a good size for you, you would have something nice. The challenge is with these older apartments is having a lift.
Yeah.
Most of the buildings often have no lift. And of course, depending on your agility, that may not work for you.
And I can also see a lot of people being attracted to this area if they wanted to live out just a little bit in the country and still be
Totally.
relatively close to town. So how easy is it to find a country house that isn't way out in the boondocks?
I think within a 20-minute radius, it's very, very easy. A 20-minute radius of Santander City. And of course, that would be, 15 minutes because the airport is right beside the city. So you're very close to the airport then as well. It would be very easy. And you could, yesterday I was looking at a house for a client and it's 20 minutes from the city in a little village, a 3-bedroom house, and it was priced at 280,000. So again, and if you're buying, of course, it's unfurnished, and if you're renting, it is furnished. So there's those considerations to come into play.
Good. All right. Thanks for going through that. So I'm going to include Grace's link below. Contact Grace if you are looking to rent or buy in the area, and she will take you through the whole process and make this as easy as it can be. She is somebody who works with a lot of the people in my network, and I can't recommend her enough.
Thank you
Grace,
very
thank
much,
you
Vanessa.
so much for sharing what life is like in Cantabria, and I can't wait to come and visit and
Yes,
see it
do.
all firsthand.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. If you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Grace's link is in the description below. If you're looking to rent or buy in the area, make sure to reach out to her. And hey, I help people from all over the world find their place in Spain. Whether you're looking to rent or buy, I likely know somebody in the area that is going to be best suited for you. And if you don't know where exactly you want to go, good news, that's what I help people do. You can schedule a 1 hour consultation with me where we can talk about your lifestyle, your preferences, and your goals for your new life in Spain. And I can guide you to the area that might be the right fit for you and introduce you to the right people to help you make the move a reality. Just book your call. The link is in the description below. I look forward to meeting you. Until next time, keep traveling, keep exploring, and keep living the life you dream about.